You behold me super sad because I did an entire recording and I lost everything, and now I have to try to reconstruct everything from memory, which I hope I can do. This video was originally going to be about all of the cute, shippy moments in episode 4, and although that is something I may still do, I did think that the cute texting that takes place between James and Ruby is probably worthy of a video of its own, given its significance in the storyline overall. I was trying to think about why the cute texting was so romantic for me. And I think that it takes its roots from the fact that the letter writing trope is one of my favorite tropes in a romance story. This starts way back from when I was a little kid and I was reading a series of books by Jean Webster. The first one is called Daddy Longlegs, and that is a story that is centered around letters that are written by a character who is an orphan named Jerusha Abbott or Judy Abbott that she writes. I don't want to spoil it, but it is a romance story, and over time we see a romance develop through the course of her letters. It's not my favorite of the set. It's possibly a time and context issue. I'm not sure that the book holds up well to 2024 sensibilities. There's also an element of deception and almost catfishing in it that I don't really love. The second book is one that I like a lot more. Those are letters written from a character called Sally McBride. She is a fiery, smart, spirited, red-haired heroine. I think I've been brainwashed by Anne Shirley from Anne of Green Gables. But she writes a series of letters in this novel as well. Again, it may not hold up to 2024 sensibilities because she's called upon to be the temporary superintendent of an orphan asylum. We don't really have those anymore. And the romantic lead is kind of a grumpy, moody guy, and we find out why. And the reasons why he's moody are not particularly romantic, especially for a 2024 audience. I'm going to temporarily spoil that, so if you don't want to hear spoilers, please stop listening now. Spoilers begin. The grumpy doctor is grumpy because his former wife was insane, and so was his child. I really don't know why the mad wife had to be such a trope in romantic novels. I thought it was bad enough that Mr. Rochester locked up his insane wife in the attic. Anyway, end of spoilers. So the letter writing tool in romantic novels is an established one. We have the famous letter from Mr. Darcy, penned in order to clarify misunderstandings with Elizabeth Bennet. It's a great letter. Ever since I was a kid, I was quite startled by how much he manages to put in the letter. The book says the envelope containing 2 sheets of letter paper, written quite through in a very close hand. My understanding is that he writes on both sides and also in the margins and up and below. But to this day, I maintain that whatever stationery he's using, it's like the TARDIS and bigger on the inside than the outside. Anyway, I digress. That, of course, isn't my favourite Austen letter. As anyone who has watched my other videos knows, my favourite Austen letter is the letter from Captain Frederick Wentworth to Anne Elliot at the end of Persuasion. That letter is heartfelt, sincere, passionate, and extremely romantic. Before we go into the texting scenes in the episodes themselves, we should probably take a look at why the texting scenes are so appealing. Traditionally, letters have been a very popular trope in romance novels. They allow the characters to express themselves in ways that they might not otherwise be able to, and they also demonstrate a certain bravery and candor. If someone's willing to put down their feelings into a tangible format which could be seen by others, it demonstrates the strength of those feelings. Aside from that, there is an art to letter writing. My husband, for instance, is a very gifted letter writer. His letters are very funny and sweet. Unfortunately, we don't really get the opportunity to write letters anymore. These days, to the extent that letters are written, they are by way of email. I don't like being separated from him, but when he goes to Canada, one of the highlights is the fact that I will get emails from him. And these emails are almost always very funny and very entertaining to read. When we're both in the same country, if I'm at work, I will get funny text messages as well. So I think that I'm predisposed to like sequences like the ones we see in this show where the characters are texting one another and clearly enjoying what they're writing and finding it funny. Regrettably, I don't think we will be seeing a return to letter writing in shows such as this, and I think that the text message is probably the best that we can hope for. The first texting we see isn't actually even between Ruby and James. It's part of the group chat for the events organization committee, and it's kind of funny. He's kind of obnoxious. I actually think I need to write the fanfic where he gets added to this group because I have no idea how it happens, and it seems quite funny to me. This has nothing to do with texting, but I have to say, for someone who's supposed to be incredibly intelligent, I do not understand how Ruby manages to leave the iron on, not notice that it is bursting into flames behind her, fling water over it, which is the worst thing you can do when there's this sort of incident, and then when she touches it, she doesn't even unplug it from the wall. So I'm surprised that Ruby isn't dead. I'm glad she's not dead, but I'm really surprised she's not dead. The first set of texting between the two of them takes place towards the end of episode 2 and the beginning of episode 3, when James is quasi inviting her to London to see the Beaufort collection. There's a little bit of arrogance on his part, but then you also see a disarming side of him, because I think part of the appeal of the text exchange is that both of them are getting to know one another. They're smiling as they receive each other's texts, and they're also smiling as they send them. So I wouldn't say it's flirtatious, but it's definitely them gradually getting to see a side of the other which is a little bit more down to earth and human. And I really loved the bit where you saw like Percy smiling in the rear vision mirror, and you could see a sort of gentler side of James. The reason I say it's arrogant is that it is kind of arrogant for him to assume that she will just be available for him to take to London, but I'm going to ignore that for now. Episode 4 is one of my favourite episodes because not only is it one of the more light-hearted episodes that contains a lot of the bonding moments between the two, but it also has the majority of the cute texting sequences. There's a cute bit at the beginning of the episode where Ruby's clearly concerned that her text message is too long, and it reminds me of an Amy Lear novel called X's and O's, where the main character is trying to reconnect with her exes with the assistance of her hot roommate who happens to be an extremely attractive firefighter. The trope in that novel is close proximity. Anyway, one of the things he does is he goes through her text messages before she sends them and makes them shorter. And that's quite cute because later on, when she sends him a short text message, he gets quite offended. The segue from Ruby's agonizing over what text to send then goes to James, lying in bed, shirtless of course, but I do love that he has his mobile phone next to him. Either he's been waiting for her to text him, or he's been trying to figure out whether he should text her. I think it's difficult not to be charmed by his smile as he thinks about Ruby, and then his delight when he receives the text from her. What follows is an absolutely adorable exchange of messages between the two, which is playing with the very early stages of flirtation, but really not quite. I think they're just being quite playful with one another as they talk about each other's names and all that sort of thing. I think this scene perfectly captures the delightfulness of receiving a text message from someone you like and sending a text message to someone you like. I remember at work recently I was walking along grinning down at my phone, and one of my co-workers demanded to know what I was laughing about. What I like about the next bit is that he is essentially keeping her company on her solo trip to school on the bus. So even though she's sitting there by herself, he's actually there with her and they're thinking about one another, and that is quite adorable. And the fact that he's trying to comfort her when he knows that she's anxious about the day ahead is also very sweet and definitely a different layer to his personality that we hadn't seen before. I don't know about anyone else, but I was already grinning quite widely during this whole scene when she's on the bus and they're texting one another and he's trying to comfort her. But then when the doors open and we see that he's been dropped off at the gate at the bus stop, I think my face almost exploded from the amount of grinning that I was doing. Like, it is super adorable. He would have had to have Percy drop him off at the bus stop, assuming he even knew where it was. And I think that that is super cute. It's also one of my all-time tropes, like the fact that he would have gone out of his way to meet her and then walk with her to school. I have even written a fan fiction about it because I was wondering how on earth does this come to take place? For completeness, although this is not a text message, we have a cute note from James about the dress. We also have poor Ruby sending a text message to James and being ghosted. So it's heartbreaking. And then finally, we have the only note that we see Ruby writing to James. And unfortunately, it's not a very tender one. So that's the end of this video. As mentioned, I will deal with the other cute moments in episode 4 in another video.